Hey guys, what's going on? This is your old pal CHH. Welcome to today's video. This is one of those kind of me discussing stuff videos, like a mini podcast, if you will. So have a seat. Make sure I've got good audio on this so it sounds good. Today I wanted to talk about who's going to be the best label for horror movies in 2024. I think that there is some sort of a trajectory you can look at to kind of decipher that. Really quick, before we get into it, I want to say that I got Thanksgiving right here, and I actually got this a few days early. I had a Walmart that just put it out. And Scream Factory found 65 copies of Sorority House Massacre on Blu-ray. And I picked one of those up. So, which is cool, you know. So I got that. But the question is, who's going to be the best label for 2024 for horror? I think to look at what's going to happen this year, you got to look at the habits of last year and see, you know, what was going on. So last year, if you're going to ask 10 people, I would say 7 out of 10 would say that the winner of last year was Arrow Video. And I think the other 3 would probably tell you that it was Second Sight Films. And this year, I'll tell you who I think it's going to be. Now, the reason I say why was it Arrow Video last year, well, let's look at what they did. Last year, they had 3 really, really big releases, kind of touchstone releases, if you will. And I think just that alone, if you look at last year, what touchstone releases did Scream Factory have last year that were big ones? I definitely think that they were in the running. You know, they had the Night of the Demons films, they had the Child's Play films, and they had a lot of exciting titles, but not what I would consider to be like stop the presses. They had Pumpkinhead and The Blob and things like that. A lot of movies people love, but not movies that were like, it's happening sort of things. You know, definitely Child's Play, and I would say The Night of the Demons, for sure. But you look at Arrow, and they did a Psycho box set. They did a Hellraiser box set. And they had what I consider personally to be a touchstone release, and still my favorite physical media box set that's come out in a very long time, which was the Empire of Screams. I thought that was such a big deal, and it was done in such a good way. Just a sensational release. And their packaging last year was on point. The Psycho box set was incredible, and I think it's really important to say this too. 4K really changed the game. And it's amazing to me. I feel like I say this in every video, but I feel like I've got to continue to say this. Because 4K is a format that itself is region-free, okay? That means you do not have to buy a region-free 4K player. The format itself is region-free. So, just to reiterate, if you live in America and you just have a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series whatever, the newest Xbox is, or if you have just a 4K player from whatever country, or not whatever country, if you just have a 4K player and you live in Wyoming, and you go to Walmart and buy a 4K player, if you bought that Arrow Video Psycho box set, the 4K box set, it's going to play perfectly fine. 4Ks are not region locked. There have been some instances of region locking, but it's not supposed to happen. I think there were recalls on a few of those titles. But my point is, because 4K is now a region-free format, it's a open playing field. Companies like 88 Films, companies like Second Sight Films, companies like such, and Arrow Video, because you got to think about Arrow Video. Arrow Video is really the company of the Region B areas. That's their mainstay for their biggest titles. Now, they do get big titles in America. As you can see right now, we're in the process of the Conan films coming out on 4K in America, which is a lovely deal and a great deal. There were some delays. I'm waiting on that, but my point is in all of this, because of 4K's advantages, the playing field is much more open, and all these companies are really fighting for everyone's dollar, not just their native people's dollar. So I think Second Sight is taking a real strong stance at saying, I want the American audience. We want the American audience. We're going to put out the best physical media releases money can buy, and then some. So when you look at last year, I think Arrow Video came out on top, but I think it was really close if you look at Second Sight and Scream Factory as a close number 2. I think Vinegar Syndrome had a really good last quarter of 2023, but I don't think Vinegar Syndrome has been the top company for a number of years. Now, I'm not a Vinegar Syndrome hater. I do make fun of them in a fun way because they will put out basically anything. But they haven't had any really killer titles, in my opinion. I mean, the Prophecy stuff is good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think they have had any great big gets since Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Nothing that's gotten people overly excited. I mean, it stopped the presses when they announced Texas Chainsaw 2. Packaging, different story. Vinegar Syndrome has cultivated a fan base like no other. I mean, they actually offer subscriptions where you pay X amount per year, I guess, and you just basically get everything that comes out from them. And people do it because they have a dedicated fan base, and I'm not going to take that away from Vinegar Syndrome. So, looking at the start of this year, to me, there are some indicators of what's going to happen. My worry with Scream Factory of 2024 is, let's look at what they've announced. They're going into a territory that I haven't seen a whole lot of excitement for. We just saw that they're announcing the Child's Play remake on 4K and CONARY. Now, I have been an advocate of saying, guys, and when I say guys, I'm referring to Scream Factory, there is such a fan base and a growing fan base for movies around the year 2001 to 2012. There's a ton of movies during this time, and we're at a point now where I would consider those movies vintage, where they have an appeal of nostalgia factor, of a nostalgia factor. They have an appeal of new eyes going back, revisiting them, and missing that era sort of thing. The same way we kind of look back on the 80s and 90s movies, I think, because enough time has gone by. I mean, the world feels a lot different than it did in 2012. 2008, 9. And I think movies during that era are really starting to become popular. My thing is, I think Scream Factory should be going after that. And you look at I gauge the reception. I mean, when I'm on Instagram and I see these announcements for the Child's Play remake, for the CONARY remake, I look at the comments, and a lot of people are just like, really? This is where we're going? So I don't know. If you were going to ask me if it's going to be Scream Factory for 2024, I have concerns. Mind you, I'm critical of Scream Factory of the things they do because I know how great they have been in the past. And I know how close they had for a long period of time, Scream Factory had the audience in the palm of their hands. They were giving them exactly what they wanted. They were doing things in such a great way. But over the last couple years, they've changed their model into doing things that just don't make sense. There was a time where they said, okay, we're going to give the audience great new interviews and bonus features, and we're going to create bodies of work with it. We're not just going to give an interview with X, Y, then Z and separate it. We're going to do an interview with X, Y, and Z. Then we're going to combine something and make a story out of this. Man, the work they did for Army of Darkness back in the day, when the documentary is as fun to, if not more fun to watch on that release for Scream Factory than the actual movie. Mind you, that's my favorite Evil Dead movie. But somewhere along the way, they changed. They became, okay, let's try to make the back of the release just look as full as possible. Let's just separate all our interviews and just make it full on the back instead of creating bodies of work, which I think is a huge mistake. And then it became, okay, you have to buy 2 slipcovers, 2 posters to get what you want. And I'm still baffled by that. I have no idea what's going through their mind with that sort of thing. So that's always going to be a big concern for me. But what's really a concern for me is what area are they about to go into? It feels like it's going to be a transitional year for Scream Factory. And I think they're going to see what they can do in terms of getting new titles. I think they know they have to do that, but I'm not sure that going into the titles that they're going into is the right thing to do. I mean, I don't know who has the licenses to movies like Hostel or things like that, but I think you can agree that, like, Hostel is a movie that has a dedicated fan base. Some of those Eli Roth titles, which they've done one before. They did Green Inferno. And I know it sold well because there were times where I wanted to get that and I thought it was out of print and finally had to wait for it to come back in stock. So, with Scream Factory in 2024, I think this is going to be a transitional year. Based on the things that have been announced this year so far. With Arrow Video, I'm not so sure. It's hard to say where they're going to go because I'm not going to say the bigger they are, the higher they go, the harder they fall, but that could be the case because this is just me. So far, I'm not very excited with anything they've announced. Granted, some of it has been slimmer versions of the titles that they've announced, like the Pinhead, the Hellraiser set, and the Psycho set. But let's call a spade a spade. This could be the year that they kind of pull a Scream Factory and just start reissuing stuff they've had on Blu-ray on 4K. Basket Case is a great movie. And I have the Arrow Video release with the slipcover of Basket Case. And I think that is from the original negative that it was remastered. And I know that Blu-ray looks really good because I remember watching it. I used to have this Something Weird video Blu-ray edition of it, or I have it. And I got the Arrow version of it, and the Arrow version was leaps and bounds better picture quality. That's not something I'm upgrading. Now, so there are people that probably don't have Basket Case or weren't able to get that release weren't able to get it with the slipcover and all the additives. But I think for a lot of people in the market, a lot of people in the market for Arrow probably are just like, well, that's the new announcement. So my concern with Arrow this year is, okay, are they going to just reissue all their stuff this year? That could happen. We could see that be the case. I'm not sure. So that's my concerns with Arrow Video. Then you look at companies like Severin. My concern with Severin, not to get weird, but I think they might have blown their load already for the year. I mean, how much higher can you get than putting out? And I consider this New Year's releases, even though I kind of got them at the last couple days of last year. But like, how higher can you go for a company like Severin than something like Cemetery Man? I mean, that was such a sensational release from them. I mean, they have Burial Ground coming out, but again, that's more rehash stuff. I think the name of the game now, I think people are really clamoring for new titles coming to a higher quality. And then you look at people like Synapse. They're never going to be, let's just call a spade a spade. They're never going to be a label that's going to be the best horror label of the year. They put out some good stuff throughout the years, but their releases are fewer and far between. And for them to, I really wish they could kind of get it in check. I really want to get The Convent. I want to review it for you guys. I want to talk about that movie for you guys. Excuse me. It sounds fun, but they wanted $50 for that. Unacceptable. Just absolutely unacceptable for a release like that. $50. So that's my concern with Synapse is their pricing. Their pricing's getting out of hand. I'm gonna get Trick or Treat. I think we all are. Who's not excited about that? That was supposed to come out last year. At least everybody had the impression it was. And Michael Felsher, who's involved with the making of that, even was just like, hey, I've kind of done my stuff. I'm just waiting on Synapse to help speed up that process. So that's where we're all with that. And Vinegar Syndrome, it's a wild card. I don't know. I mean, I know they've got their IFC partnerships and stuff in the works, and to me, the biggest thing they need to do is a Human Centipede box set. Because whether you like those movies or not, they have a fan base. They have people. When you say that title, people get a reaction. So hopefully they're doing something with that soon. But if you're gonna ask me who I think could be the best of 2024 based off the trajectory we've seen so far, I think Second Sight could be the company. And I'm talking globally, because, again, they're putting stuff out on 4K now. That's an even playing field. You could live in Wyoming, as I'll use as the state of choice, and order from them, and your stuff is going to play fine in your player, because 4K is a region-free format. And then you look at the stuff that they've announced and are putting out right now. They're going right after that French horror explosion. We just got what did I just get? I did a short on it. The hell is it? It's about the girl who is at a house and it gets invaded by somebody. I forget the name of the damn movie. High Tension. I'm thinking to myself, am I losing my mind? Those are titles that have fan bases, and they're coming to a new format, and it's not only going to get the fans of that movie, but it's also going to attract new customers because they're like, oh, I heard about that. I don't even know if I own that. They're putting out Inside, which I have pre-ordered. And they're doing other stuff like Frontiers. They're starting to cultivate a new era of horror on that high quality. And they have the benefit of maybe the licensing on that stuff being a little bit easier, being that it's overseas. Some of that stuff seems to be a little... I mean, let's look at what Second Sight's been able to do. Stuff like Dawn of the Dead. They've been able to get that. And it's a different ball game because the U.S. rights holder, I think, is under one person. And people have said the name and exorbitant amount of money he wants. So they have some advantages, being that their licenses for the home base is probably... It's different than America, and it may be easier. But look at the stuff they put out. They go into territory that it seems like American territories don't go into. Second Sight has done stuff like Paranormal Activity, done a really nice release of that. They've done stuff like Mungo, Session 9, which Scream Factory did a release for Session 9, but they give the bells and whistles to movies like those. And I think people are ready to get into that era of horror more, the 2000s era, and things like that. And I know that the sales for High Tension were good. I look online and I see a lot of people picking those. Up. So I think based on the trajectory, you can look at Second Sight and say, God, this might be their year. And I think they will more than likely announce some titles that are going to be game-changing titles. I mean, along with Dark Sky Films, they put out Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I have a lot of regret not grabbing that collector's release. I probably should have. My focus was on artwork, but I think that Second Sight even has a few things in it that the Dark Sky didn't, quite frankly. But, you know, you live and you learn. I think at the time I was just like, well, I'm not going to buy every edition. But looking back, it's like, well, it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So neither here or there. But my point is, I think if I had to place, let's just say, a gentleman's bet, and maybe we can come back to this video down the road and I can listen back to what I said. I think the label of 2024 is probably going to be, and for horror specifically, is going to be Second Sight Films. And I think as soon as people realize if you're a 4K customer, you can buy from around the world, you're going to be more excited about the titles that they're going to be doing right now, because they're titles that, quite frankly, may not get that kind of treatment in America. And here's another thing about Second Sight, too, is, you know, let's say there are titles that you'd be interested in, but you don't need all the bells and whistles. Well, just like Arrow, they'll put out a standard version of Session 9. They put out a standard version of High Tension. You can get just the release of the film. Martin, for instance, the George Romero film that they did. So, just like Arrow Video, they give you layers, or they give you options, which is very, very important. Scream Factory never does anything like that, but Arrow does, and Second Sight does. So, I think 2024 more than likely is going to be the year of Second Sight Films, based off the trajectory. Now things could change, guys, but that's the beauty of like doing a video like this now, is seeing what my thoughts are going to, if my thoughts are going to come to fruition, as opposed to, wow, like the game kind of changed a month or so after this, and some of the releases come out. So my big concern is, like I said, is Arrow Video may start just putting out a lot of the stuff they've already done again. Like, maybe just one title like Basket Case is not a good indicator of their future, but if it is, that could be an issue for me, because truth be told, I don't upscale everything, and especially with Arrow Video. American Werewolf in London, I never upgraded to 4K because the Blu-ray was an original camera negative 4K scan. I never upgraded RoboCop because their release, you know, I don't upscale everything. I just don't. With Arrow Video, especially because they really don't change much of anything. I mean, Scream Factory, at least they were doing these cool new steelbooks with gorgeous art, way better than the Blu-ray releases, like Army of Darkness and The Fog and They Live. There's gorgeous steelbooks that were just like, oh man, that's a work of art. I have to get that. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting, guys. It's going to be interesting, but if I had to place a bet, I think it could be Second Sight's year again. You could argue maybe some people could say last year was their year too. I go with Arrow Video because of the degree of titles that they got, like the Psycho box sets, which was such a big deal and things like that. So, but it could be Second Sight's year. But I ask you guys, what are you thinking? Do you have the same concerns as me? Do you see it from a different angle? Or do the titles that other companies put out, maybe you're into that horror remake world that Scream Factory's getting into, that, Carrie and things like that. And I may get Carrie. I don't think I'm going to get, I say that, I don't really feel like getting Child's Play remake, but then it's the only one I'm missing on 4K now, and then I don't know that I necessarily want Carrie, but I might go revisit that again and decide it's actually a good movie. I wouldn't mind that on 4K. I just don't know. I just don't know, guys. It's going to be interesting. But there we go, guys. That's a video on my thoughts. I just wanted to, talk about this and kind of give you guys some videos of mine that kind of feel like mini podcasts, because truth be told, I like sharing my thoughts in videos like this. So that's it for today, guys. We'll see if my guesses come true, but I'm interested in what you guys think. Who is going to be the dominant label for horror in 2024? This is your old pal CHH. Take care, guys. Drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll see y'all next time. Huge giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind the scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.